Good afternoon, everyone, whether you are here in our beautiful Sala Ottavo Centenario or watching this from your home. Good afternoon and welcome to the 2021 3MT competition of the University of Bologna. 3MT stands for 3 Minute-Thesis, and this is an annual competition held in over 200 universities worldwide. It originated at the University of Queensland in 2008, and from there it spread to the rest of the world, including the oldest university in the world, the University of Bologna. And we are participating as member of the Coimbra Group. The competition is open to PhD students and challenges participants to present their research in just 3 minutes in a way that is comprehensible and engaging for a lay audience with no background in their research field. As you can imagine, this competition aims at developing presentation, research and academic communication skills and fostering PhD students' ability to explain their work efficiently. Before giving the floor to our participant, I would like to introduce you to our jury. Professor Antonino Rotolo, Vice Rector for Research, Professor Beatrice Fraboni, Director of the Collegio Superiore, Andrei Cosmin Siea, Member of the Collegio Superiore, and Maria Francesca Di Filippo, the winner of 3MT competition last year. And now, let's welcome our Vice Rector for Research, Professor Antonino Rotolo.
Thanks very much. I hope you can see me. You can hear me. Very good. So welcome all of you to this wonderful event. This initiative is wonderful. You know, last year, by the way, we succeeded, and one of the members of the jury is succeeded. So Maria Francesca Di Filippo is member of the jury, and she won last year. So it was a great success of the University of Bologna. These events today and this year is exciting as well. And let me say a few words why this event and this initiative is so important for us and for you, first of all. Science communication is a very important skill. It's a very important skill for all researchers, especially for young researchers, early career researchers like you. There are a number of reasons why you should be equipped with such a skill. Well, first of all, there is a reason which is contingent. Well, I would say probably is not so contingent. And that's to do with COVID. We are in a very difficult time, the pandemic. And during the pandemic, we discovered how communicating science correctly is so important. Well, it's important because many people don't know exactly what science is. And the fact that, for example, dissent in science is not pathological, it's not pathology, but it's physiology. But also that the fact that in science, competence is important. You can dissent, but this must be coupled with competence. So science communication is very important nowadays. And working in order to improve this skill is very important for all PhD students. The second thing is that has to do with your career. My experience says that in 90% of cases, you will be assessed by people who know less about your research than you. So it's quite important in your thesis defense, in your interview, if you go to an interview for ERC, for example, to explain your own research in clear way, and allow people to understand what is your research. Don't stick to technicalities too much. Try to convey the main message, why your research is important, what the plan of your research, and what is the impact of your research. All these issues are very important for your success as a researcher. So I would say that, and finally, 3 minutes. Well, if you succeed, the first 3 minutes are decisive for succeeding. So learning to explain your ideas, to convince that your ideas are good in 3 minutes is not a game, a ludic activity. It's a serious game. It's a very serious game and is important for your career. So thanks very much. Good luck, finger crossed, and thanks again for joining this event.
Thank you, Professor Rotolo, for this great introduction. Now, as you know, the rules of this competition are very simple. However, there are a few pointers for the member of the voting audience. There are some things you should absolutely take into account while evaluating each participant. Let me remind you of them. Their ability to communicate research to a non-specialist audience. Their effectiveness in communicating the relevance and impact of their research topic. Their level of engagement. And last but not least, the usefulness of the PowerPoint slide presenting their research. Your evaluation should not take into account your personal relationship with any of the participants. Please, let's try to make this as fair as possible. You'll be asked to grade each performance from 1 to 5, when 1 means poor and 5 means excellent. More importantly, you need to evaluate each participant. Indeed, if you leave the voting area before the end of the event or try to skip forward to the next candidate without having completed the evaluation of the previous one, your vote will be considered void and ignored in the final count. Now, let's start this competition.
Our first participant is Riccardo Nanni, a PhD student in international relations. His dream is to become a university professor. But if that goes south, he has a plan B. He would be working in the third sector, pursuing his passions, which are cooking, reading, and playing bass. Due to the pandemic, he had to conduct his research remotely and reassuringly found out that everyone, from the tech people to computer illiterates, needs to face the sheer reality made of poor bandwidth, poor audio, and delays. In a way, the pandemic made us more equal. Riccardo, the floor is yours.
Will the internet fragment? Do we have to expect strong influence on the rules and norms of the internet from the Chinese government? Will we be able to communicate seamlessly between one corner to the and another of the world through the internet as we do nowadays in 10 years' time? These are questions that are debated on a daily basis on global media. However, how much of this is pure geopolitical talk? Now, through interviews with people engaged firsthand in internet governance, in making internet standards, with technologists in particular, who possess a technological knowledge that most lay people, including myself, don't have, I try to reconstruct what is going on. Now, of course, there's good and bad news. The evidence is mixed. On the bad news end, we can see that the unknowns on the relation between the Chinese government and Chinese private stakeholders, such as Huawei, are still unknown. However, what emerges through interviews with technologists is a dialectical relation between Huawei and the government, between Chinese stakeholders and the government, one where there's space for private actors to act autonomously, although the governmental role is still there and it's still strong. And on the fragmentation side, actually, evidence is better than we usually think. It's true. China is censoring the internet. Censorship in China is stronger and stronger. It started with the Golden Shield project. It went up to Facebook, Google, WhatsApp in 2017. However, this is happening because Chinese companies are becoming global. They are becoming global players, and this exposes the Chinese government to external pressure, to external information influxes. After all, Huawei will not want the internet to fragment. They will not want different protocols to be applied on one corner of the world and another protocol elsewhere, because this will mean having to produce different devices for different markets. So for the government not to lose the advantages of having such a strong player like Huawei, they recur to censorship. But that kind of censorship is there because Chinese stakeholders are interested in keeping the internet unified. And this is all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Riccardo. Now, let's welcome to the stage Margherita D'Alessandro, a second-year PhD student in food science and biotechnology. With her research, she works for women's well-being, and this is her career goal. When she's not busy researching, she loves reading classical poems and watching history and art documentaries. If she hadn't become a researcher, she would have been an art critic or a restorer. She comes indeed from the Eternal City and has always loved Rome and its art. Welcome, Margherita, and good luck.
Good afternoon, everyone. Now I would draw your attention in the main aim of my PhD research, that is highlighting the production of high-quality and functional dairy gender foods, conceived as an innovative food strategy to promote women's well-being. In this time, food can be perceived not only to satisfy hunger, but also to directly contribute to consumers' health. More specifically, functional food as a dietary strategy to reduce human illness could affect human health also in relation to the gender. In fact, recent studies have highlighted the anti-candida and anti-chlamydia activities showed by some probiotic microorganisms such as Lactobacillus crispatus and Lactobacillus gasseri. So, also the dairy products such as fermented milk and cheese could represent excellent carrier of probiotic bacteria, also widely appreciated by consumers for the good amounts in calcium, phosphorus and vitamins. Therefore, also in order to protect women from specific dysbiosis related to their gender, the purpose of my research is the development of high quality and functional dairy gender foods, containing active lactobacilli with anti-candida, anti-chlamydia, and anti-foodborne pathogens activity that could represent an hedonistic strategy for ingestion of selected probiotics and also a valid alternative to pharmaceutical preparation. In this framework, the intended result fulfills three of the main criteria to include probiotics in a food system. First one, the main compatibility with starter culture. Second one is the maintains so high viability also after the digestive process, also in order to express for the probiotic strain their specific functionality. And the final one is the capability of the probiotic strain to impart to the final product good sensory properties. In conclusion, the principal outcome of my research would be the development of a commercial with high impact dairy gender food that could represent a great challenge for the female gender and also a useful contribution to innovate the dairy sector. Thank you so much for your attention.
And now to our first online contestant, Luca Pagani. Luca is a PhD student in physics at the University of Bologna and is currently in Leuven, Belgium. He fell in love with physics during high school, but before embarking on a PhD, he used to work as a junior consultant for a big financial company. Later, finance became just a hobby, as he found nature and physics much more interesting and fascinating. He's also part of a team of young entrepreneurs with whom he's developing an app to help students learn physics. Luca, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to start this presentation with a question. Have you ever wondered why the sky is blue? Quite surprisingly, the scientific explanation of this familiar phenomenon only came up in the late 19th century, thanks to the British physicist John Rayleigh at the University of Cambridge. Rayleigh provided the first theoretical treatment of scattering of light by dust from the atmosphere, a phenomenon known as Rayleigh scattering, which notably explains why the sky is blue. Nowadays, there are multiple ways to explain the sky's color. Among other, the effective field theories can tell us in a faster and simpler way that the more light is energetic, the higher is the number of interaction between the sunlight and the dust from the atmosphere. Blue light, being the most energetic, is the one that gives to the sky its color. But effective field theories are much more than this. Indeed, they are useful to explain dark matter and dark energy, which are highly complex phenomena. According to the dominant theory on the origin and evolution of the universe, we only know 5% of it. The remaining 95% of the universe is what we call dark sector, which is made of dark energy and dark matter. So now the question is, how can we study something that we cannot see nor perceive? What we can do to explore the dark sector is either guess the right theory among billions of allowed theories, or proceed more scientifically by studying a class of them, that is, effective field theories, to detect the features and the properties of the right theory. In fact, in my research, I use this class of theories to study the dark matter. Through effective field theories, I analyze what kind of particle compose dark matter and how they interact with ordinary matter, which is the matter we are also made of, that we find in the Earth. In addition, one of the perks of these theories is that they simplify elaborate calculation and let us obtain the same result given by other different and difficult methods. In other words, an effective field theories is an approximation for an underlying complex physical theory. As every theoretical study, I cross-reference every day the outcomes of the theory with the experimental data obtained at the European Laboratory of CERN in Geneva. Well, this is my research. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Luca. Now we're hearing it from Vittoria Laghi. Vittoria is a PhD student in Structural and Environmental Health Monitoring and Management at the Department of Structural Design of the University of Bologna. She likes to define herself as a creative soul with a scientific mind. Hard work does not scare Vittoria. She worked as a researcher, but also as a welder. Her curiosity goes beyond her academic profile. Indeed, if she weren't a researcher, she would be a backpacker traveling the world with her camera. Let's welcome Vittoria to the stage.
What's the most innovative steel structure that comes to your mind? To me, before I started my PhD, I thought it was the Centre Pompidou, with the steel structure covering the entire building as it was always under construction. But since then, innovation in construction sector has moved forward. 3D printing has gained a lot of attention in all production domains, and now it is slowly becoming a solution for the construction sector as well. We normally see 3D printing to be used for small pieces and mostly in plastic, but actually in the last few years it was applied also for small connections in steel for architectural projects. During my PhD, I found an answer to how to actually 3D print large-scale steel structures, and the answer is called Wire and Arc Additive Manufacturing, acronym WAM. It's a welding-based 3D printing technology that uses large robotic arms able to 3D print steel structures up to several meters span and few meters high. Imagine that it was used to realize the first 3D printed steel footbridge that it's going to be placed in Amsterdam city center. That's all fantastic, but I'm still a structural engineer, and as an engineer, I want to make sure that the structure that I'm going to design and create will sustain all the load applied during its lifetime, meaning that it's going to be safe. Imagine all the people crossing a bridge, or the weight coming from a rooftop on top of a column. During my PhD study, I developed an intense experimental work on 3D printed steel material that allowed me to draw the first design guidelines to guide designers and engineers to apply steel 3D printing in construction. I actually used those guidelines myself to design and fabricate the first 3D printed steel column that is able to sustain all the load applied with the structural requirements while minimizing the material weight with respect to the traditional manufacturing column. But steel 3D printing is just the first step towards full automation in construction. Now, new studies see the development of small automatized robots able to 3D print entire structures while moving on them. How? Well, imagine how a spider can move along the web while producing it. We have patented that idea that could pave the way towards unexplored possibilities to build in harsh environments. Imagine the possibility to create shelters to protect external environments from disasters like Chernobyl, or even create shelters for humans in non-human environments. Yes, I'm talking about the moon and Mars. Well, in that case, sky is not the limit. Thank you.
Thank you, Vittoria. Our next participant is Riccardo Proietti. Born in Viterbo but bred in Bologna, he's always been fascinated by the human mind and behavior of people. Now he gets to delve into these issues thanks to his research. Future-wise, he likes to keep his option open, but truly hopes that he will be given the chance to pass on to other students what he had learned. Weren't he a researcher, he'd be engaged turning one of his passions into a job. He would have plenty to choose from, as he's a man of many passions. Gardening, 3D graphics, audio composition, or programming. Break the leg, Riccardo.
One of the best ways to understand the brain is to build one. The recent progresses in neuroscience and artificial intelligence have led to the discovery of the principles that answer to some of the fundamental questions concerning the functioning of the brain and behavior, such as why do we have a brain, how does it work, and why sometimes it doesn't work properly. Today, we can formalize these concepts to create different computer simulation of many different brain systems. In my project, I applied this idea to create a simulation of the neural systems that encodes our ability to understand the intentions and the meaning of other people's actions. This system is essential for everyday social interactions because it allows to predict and respond properly to others' behavior and, importantly, to learn by imitation. The neuropsychological research have demonstrated that this system can be compromised at different levels. For example, damages in one area of the brain can lead to an impaired understanding of the meaning of an action, while damages in another area can lead to an impaired recognition of the kinematics of an action. Indeed, we can reproduce these differentiated deficits in our simulation by creating virtual damages that impair the artificial brain ability to understand action. We can then compare our simulated results with the real clinical population, observing how the manipulation of specific parameters correlates with the severity of patients' damages and deficits. From this comparison, we can then generate predictions about the evolution of the damage and formulate targeted treatments to improve the remission of the deficit. At last, by looking at the efficacy of these predictions and treatments, we can further improve the design of our simulation. My idea is that from this process, we can bring about a virtuous cycle of constant improvement between the clinical application and our understanding of the brain. The more we refine our simulation, the more we can compensate to more severe deficits, as we comprehend the rules that govern our brain and behavior, and we come closer and closer to the building of a true human-like artificial intelligence. Thank you.
Let's now get to Sara Coluccelli, a third-year PhD student in the program of Health and Technologies at the University of Bologna. Sara is currently in Basel, where she is determined to complete her path and make a contribution to cancer research. In another life, she would have been an interior designer, as she believes in the healing power of pleasant-looking furniture. But Sara is a surprising woman. She also loves Latino dancing, as it makes her feel relaxed and more aware of her body. Her oddity is collecting postcards of the places she visits and display them in her house. In this way, she is always able to relive the highlights of her past.
What do lightnings, neon lights, and the ionosphere have in common? The answer dates back to the 1920s, when the chemist Irving Langmuir first described and named the first state of matter, plasma, an ionized gas full of charged particles, like reactive oxygen and nitrogen species, but also ultraviolet and electromagnetic fields. Well known for its uses in industry and technology, its application to the medicine is subject of a relatively young discipline called plasma medicine, whose most important research field is the application of this matter, the potential of plasma in oncology. Biological plasma activity is due to the synergistic effect of their components, whose interaction both with the liquid cellular environment and cellular structures trigger two specific biological cascades in the cell. To delve into the mechanism by which plasma interact with the living system, the chemistry of plasma-liquid interaction is definitely of help. Plasma-activated liquids are produced by exposing them to high-voltage electrical discharges, leading to the production of reactive oxygen and nitrogen species, which can trigger cell death. We showed that in vitro treatment using a plasma liquid treatment suitable to the clinics are effective against cells of ovarian cancer. This is one of the most lethal diseases in women due to its high aggressiveness and poor prognosis, whose therapy often fails as chemo-resistance sets in. In this context, plasma-activated liquid treatments seem promising as a new therapeutic strategy to be used in combination with standard therapies, given their ability to act locally against cancer cells, preserving healthy tissue and thus limiting chemotherapy side effects. The biggest challenge in developing this potential targeting agent is to test it on a research model capable of mimicking the complex nature of ovarian cancer. In this regard, we established a reproducible ovarian cancer 3D model using excised tumor cultured in a perfusion bioreactor and showed the efficiency of perfusion-based cultures in obtaining uniform tissue-like structures in a context of a dynamic and controlled microenvironment. In this system, we reproduce a situation closer to the clinics, where the affirmation treatment could induce cancer cell death with reduced damage on the surrounding healthy cells. We are fully convinced to place a bet on this innovative therapeutic strategy as an extra weapon to fight cancer. Thank you all for the attention.
Thank you, Sara. Now, let's get back to our room where Yanni Klati is waiting to begin. Yanni is a Finnish-Belgian PhD student in political studies. He chose the University of Bologna for its prestige and legacy. He's not a classic academic, as his background as political commentator and writer makes him an exception in the academia. And he's sure that he could have been a journalist or a political advisor hadn't he become a researcher. His ultimate career goal? being able to combine the public discourse on socially relevant issues and the academic one to achieve more dynamic results. But Yannick has more in store for his life. He's a boxer and a writer with a manuscript on the way of publication. Go on, Yannick, knock them out.
What is populism? This concept we hear about when we open the TV or radio or just take our cell phone out to listen to watch the news or listen to a podcast. According to political scientist Müde, we are living in populist times, and indeed, populism was chosen as the word of the year by Cambridge Dictionary in 2017. Some scholars have called this concept as slippery, spectral, and even sexy, whereas Müller has said it's one of the most misinterpreted concepts of our time. Indeed, many scholars have not reached a consensus whether it's an ideology, political style, logic, or performance. But why should we care? Why should you care? Well, the populist victory trap is undeniable at the moment. They have doubled their mean vote share in the last 50 years in Europe from less than 7% to 14%. And if you look across the Atlantic to the US or to India or even Israel, we can say that populist radical right parties are a part of the mainstream. If you look at my home countries, Finland or Belgium, the mere presence of populist parties are shaping policy, and here in Italy we have 2 populist parties in the government at the moment. In my research, I acknowledge the concept of populism through the contemporary definitions and approach it in the hybrid media system. To put it simply, I observe what populism is in the legacy media, which refers to TV, radio, and newspapers, and the digital media, in this case Twitter. Legacy media and digital media are part of the same hybrid media system, even though they follow a different logic. My data consists of tens of thousands of tweets from Italy, Belgium and Finland, and hundreds of newspaper articles from each 3 countries. The focus point is the European Union elections of 2019, and these countries have been chosen because the prominent populist presence in the countries, and of course because I also comprehend and speak these languages, so I will not need translation. I will I'm conducting a content analysis using mixed methods. And within the research questions you can observe from my slides, I will see how populism, but also populist actors and non-populist actors emerge from legacy media and digital media. These results so far have already provided and shown us how in the hybridization of the media system, populist logic has been created, and also how populist communication has been observed, created and retweeted. I hope that the initial and the last results will also show us and give us an answer to the debate whether populism is a threat to democracy or not, and maybe the next time an angry mob tries to storm a parliament house provoked by populist actor and digital media, we will be more prepared. Thank you.
Thank you, Yannick, for your presentation. We have now a little surprise scheduled for you, the audience. In a few minutes, you will enjoy a short musical interlude performed by a flutist of the Collegium Musicum. The Collegium Musicum Alme Matris, choir and orchestra, offers university students the opportunity to share their passion and curiosity for music in a young, dynamic and international context. The guiding thought underlying the Collegium Musicum's project is that music is a universal language, and as such, it facilitates exchanges and promotes deep cultural understanding. This enriches the human experience of those who are part of the Collegium, but also the audience. Today, we are going to listen to Syrinx, a flute solo piece by Claude Debussy, performed by Collegium Musicum member Valentina Gnudi. Ms. Gnudi studies political, social and international sciences here at the University of Bologna and graduated in flute from the Bologna's Music Academy. Let's now listen to this beautiful melody. Thank you, Ms. Nudi, that was wonderful. Time now for our next PhD student, Caterina Morganti from Cervia. She is in the doctoral program of architecture and cultural design. She learned from her parents that teaching brings culture and inclusivity to communities, and she believes that architecture can be a little bit like teaching. She traveled the world to develop her curriculum, winning fellowships and grants. Her PhD allows her to delve into both her passions, research and teaching. She couldn't be happier. Caterina, good luck.
Public existing buildings need renovation. This condition, also valid for the rest of the world, shows how to find a correct method of intervention on buildings is essential, both from the point of view of investigation, survey and design, as well as for the relevant aspect of transparency in the assignment of work, in order to help public administration to reduce waste and injustices. And in this context, what is the influence of the digitalization of processes? The answer to this question is contained in the acronym HBIM. HBIM means Heritage Historic Building Information Modeling, and the research's contribution is the examination of tools and methods for the application of HBIM, understanding its flows and proposing a plan for an optimized workflow. HBIM is not, as everybody might think, just simple three-dimensional modeling production, but also the definition of HBIM criteria and application method during the process, from its execution to its subsequent maintenance. HBIM is a reverse engineering applied to existing buildings, and the main phases of this process are the collection of all historical data of the building, the survey of the building that can be performed with different instrument techniques, laser scanning, photogrammetry, or photogrammetry with drone, the construction of the three-dimensional geometric model, and the association of different performance data to this model. This process also put on evidence the importance of the data sharing settings contained within the HBIM model, whose primary aim is to put on evidence traceability, transparency, the preservation of information in according to specific certification and international standards. Finally, HBIM and the digital twin of the building are the future of integrated design in architecture to preserve and to promote our precious Italian heritage and, in general, the world heritage. Thank you all.
Thank you, Caterina. Now we're getting back to a Zoom call with Luca Bondi, a PhD student in nanoscience for medicine and environment at the Department of Physics. A Star Trek enthusiast, he has an innate desire for discovery and a heartfelt passion for science. He's not sure about his future or what he could have done if he hadn't enrolled in a PhD program, but Luca knows one thing for sure. He would continue to learn and study how the world works. He recalls a funny yet successful episode of his career. While on an internship in Cambridge, he tried to remove water from a biocompatible liquid crystal using olive oil. It worked, but the entire lab smelled like fried chips for a while. Welcome, Luca, and please don't try us.
Now you've been shown the two main applications of my recent work. On the left, you've seen the artificial retina, an organic biocompatible and, most importantly, biointegrable device capable of restoring the light sensitivity that was lost as a consequence of a damaged retina. On the right, it was shown the Lion-Hearted project, that is the framework of my ongoing research and which is aiming to develop an organic nanoparticle device capable of exploiting light to modulate the proliferation of cardiac cells, thus restoring the cardiac function in injured hearts. Now, you can be wondering what my project is about. Well, let me clarify it to you by just briefly drawing a little comparison about interface and communication. Whenever you have a dichotomy like the me and you, like the subject and the object, like our organic integrated device and the cells in the body, you have a border zone, an interface, in fact. I can be a more materialistic kind of person. I can think of myself having a neat interface separating me from the rest of the world, or I can have a more holistic kind of vision and think of a more gray interlaced area between us. Similarly, depending on both the characteristic of the material we are studying and what we are investigating, we can range from diffuse to neat interfaces. Nothing exists without interaction and communication, and these must pass through the interface which exists between the sender and the receiver. Let's come back to the me and you story. Whenever I have a thought that is, in fact, energy and information, I can express it by talking or writing, so letting the message go out of me, so someone can receive it. Or I can just express it with my face, with a gesture, by blushing, by changing the perception of my figure, but without letting anything go out of me. Similarly, our devices, when they receive light, which is likewise energy and information, can transfer electrons through the interface, thus creating a messenger molecule that can be sensed by a cellular receptor, as happened with nanoparticles in our heart cell, or they can just change the field around them, which once perceived, let the information jump to destination, like in artificial retinas. In this context, my role is to study how light stimulation impacts on the behavior of this interface by within organic materials, often identified as plastic, but there is a lot more going on here, and their usual environment inside living organisms. These studies have a plethora of possible applications which are not limited to biomedical issues like the ones we talked about up to now, but can branch out into green energy field, where exploiting this same kind of processes it is possible to develop a totally bio-friendly and environmentally friendly way to convert the energy of the sun into safe zero carbon emission fuels. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Luca. And now we're back to the rectorate with Chiara Xausa, a third-year PhD student at the Department of Interpreting and Translation. Chiara loves books and hiking, but she's also passionate about feminism. Indeed, she's a gender equality expert, and she studied in the Gemma Erasmus Mundus Master's degree in Women's and Gender Studies, the same program in which Patrick Zaki was studying before he got arrested. She hopes to become a gender and sustainability advisor or to teach and conduct research at the university level on gender studies and environmental humanities. Chiara, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. Imagine a broken planet like the one you just seen in my slide. A planet which is constantly hit by devastating climate events, and people live in a perpetual state of disaster preparedness. A planet in which some people have the ability to manipulate and control the Earth. And finally, a planet in which two women have the power to save the world from climate apocalypse and racial injustice. I'm talking about the Broken Earth trilogy by American science fiction writer N.K. Jemisin, but you may have read some parallels with our current situation. This trilogy, indeed, is a perfect metaphor for the Anthropocene and for climate change. Plus, it places gender and environmental racism at its center. Switching from fiction to reality, we're living in the so-called Anthropocene, this new epoch in which human, the anthropos, human footprint on the planet has become pervasive enough to constitute a distinct geological change and has become a major threat to the environment. And there's a high level of scientific consensus on that. But what do gender and race have to do with climate change? And what does literature have to do with climate change? My PhD project seeks to answer these two questions using a climate justice perspective and an environmental humanities methodology. These frameworks understand the environmental crisis not as a mere techno-scientific problem, but also as a question of socioeconomic inequality, cultural difference, and so on. The anthropos, after which geologists have named the current epoch, doesn't seem to have a class, a race, a gender, a nationality. But the climate crisis isn't the product of human nature as a whole. Both human responsibility for climate change and vulnerability to environmental harm are unevenly universal. Minority groups, women, indigenous communities, low-income people are the ones most severely affected by natural disasters. To give you some data, women and children are 14 times more likely to die in ecological disasters than men. And this vulnerability is not innate, but it's a result of inequalities produced by gender roles, discrimination, and poverty. So how to convey this information to a wide and non-expert audience and to create an ethics for the Anthropocene? One possible way could be literature, given its potential for creating an empathetic awareness of climate injustice in the ones who are not yet experiencing the effects of global warming firsthand. So what I'm doing is looking at climate fiction, so novels about climate change, novels written by feminist, post-colonial, and indigenous authors that challenge this hegemonic discourse of the Anthropocene, suggesting that the impact of catastrophes is not gender-neutral nor color-blind. I can read a question in your eyes. How can literature save the world from climate change? It probably can't, but it can help us to elaborate a consciousness of the Anthropocene that takes at its core structural power imbalances, suggesting that we can't solve the problem of climate change without a deep transformation in society. Thank you.
Thank you, Chiara. This time, we welcome Olga Trunova to the stage. Olga is a third-year PhD student at the Department of Management and a fellow of the Institute of Advanced Studies of the University of Bologna. She chose to pursue an academic career by conscious choice. She loves research, but also teaching, and she believes in making learning a bidirectional process rather than a monodirectional one. Spending your time in free time in nature provides her with inspiration and restores her energy. This is how Olga gains new perspectives on her future and refreshes her mind and soul. Break the leg, Olga.
Think about the city you want to live in. Whether it should be sustainable, safe, place with well-connected infrastructure and easy access to public services. But what if the city is smart and tries to advance all these areas, or at least targets at the core of them? So what is this smartness is about? Now there are many ongoing debates about smart city, which essentially means that local government is trying to address the needs of the city through digitalization, using technologies as a tool to make life better and just more comfortable for people. It seems reasonable, but at the same time, each place is different. So what would fit to one city will not be suitable for another one due to different geographical location, size, population, social, economic, and political characteristics. So this idea of smart city as making life better through the use of technologies is traveling across the globe to be localized differently in each particular context. As a combination of global components and local features to be localized in each particular city in its own specific way. And I looked at the context of Russia and tried to understand how a smart city concept was created and managed there. Who are the main actors who actually decide what these smart transformations should be about? And I found out that local government is the main actor. And citizens, they are willing to participate. They want to share their ideas, needs, suggestions, how the city should be improved. Local government, well, they are not against it, but they prefer to discuss it with experts from business, from academia, from non-profit organizations, and experts in developing strategy for a city, strategic vision, how the city should be developed. They leave people aside. So people, instead of being active participants, they play a rather passive role of users or consumers. And if smart city is a way how to make life more comfortable and better for people, well, it seems that government and experts, they know better how to do that.
So what's the role of citizens in this endeavor, and for whom eventually this smart digitalization and smart technologies should serve? Thank you.
Thank you, Olga. Our next contestant is Daniel Gracia Perez from Spain. While studying for his master's degree in International and European Union Studies in Valencia, Daniel realized that learning is a lifelong process and therefore decided to embark on a PhD to learn even more. He's not sure about his professional future, but, quoting Beyoncé, he would like to leave his footprint on the sands of time. At the risk of sounding cliché, he's determined to leave the world a better place than he found it. Thank you, Daniel.
Do you know the myth of Atlantis? I'm sure you do. And I'm sure you're also familiar with some paradisiacal destinations, such as the Maldives, the Marshall Islands, or the French Polynesia. What you may not know is that many of these islands will disappear underwater as a result of sea level rise. And this is just an example of how climate change will impact on human mobility. Currently, 680 million people live in low-lying coastal areas. In Africa, 250,000 people were displaced last year as a result of drought-related famine. And in the Asia-Pacific region, 1.2 billion people are exposed to extreme weather events. We are not prepared to deal with these challenges. There is currently no international treaty to protect the so-called climate-displaced persons. So my research focuses on this gap. And to this end, I'm developing a new international treaty which builds on 3 pillars: prevention, protection, and recovery. Prevention involves anticipation. If we eliminate environmental factors underlying displacement, we eliminate the need to move. However, the most affected countries by climate change are developing countries. So the new treaty must guarantee a real transference of knowledge and technology from north to south. For example, by helping them to build sea defenses, or to develop better urban planning, avoiding construction in areas prone to suffer floods or earthquakes. Protection calls for intervention. The international community is governed by the principle of sovereignty, which means that the state cannot interfere in the affairs of another state. But sovereignty cannot mean impunity. In 2008, after Cyclone Nargis hit Myanmar, the government blocked the entry of humanitarian aid as it feared a foreign invasion. This kind of behavior cannot be allowed. If national authorities are not capable of action, then the international community must be allowed to intervene to protect the victims. This is known as the collective responsibility to protect and must also be ensured in the treaty. Finally, recovery involves the return of those displaced to their homes. But what happens when this is not possible, as in the case of islands threatened by sea level rise? Some island states, such as Kiribati or Tuvalu, are purchasing land in other countries to transfer the population there. But these private acquisitions do not create a new state, so the transfer communities will not be subject to the authority of host state, which could imply the loss of civil, political, and cultural rights. Thus, the treaty must find a very difficult balance, ensuring integration with the host communities and respect for identity and basic human rights. Prevention, protection, and recovery. These are the 3 key elements to face climate change and the impact it will have on this global community, which is humanity. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Silvia Granata is our next participant. Silvia is enrolled in the PhD program in biotechnological, biocomputational, pharmaceutical, and pharmacological sciences. And in her career, both as a student and as a researcher, she won awards and prizes. She chose to become a researcher because she always wanted to help people. But if she hadn't been a researcher, she would probably work in a pharmacy, as she likes to communicate with people and help them on a daily basis. When she's not busy with her research, she does yoga, plays chess, and paints with watercolors. What an eclectic curriculum. Welcome, Silvia.
Globally, smoking is associated with an important increase in the risk factor for various disorders, such as cardiovascular and respiratory diseases, and also infections and cancer. So, tobacco smoke has been considered as a threat to health by the World Health Organization. To help replace conventional cigarettes, various devices have been designed. Among these devices, we find patches, chewing gum, and electronic cigarettes. Electronic cigarettes can use different technologies. Some can vaporize the liquid, and others can heat the tobacco, avoiding the combustion phenomenon. The use of electronic cigarettes spread widely because they have been considered as a way to help with smoking and also a safer alternative than conventional cigarettes. But their safety has never been demonstrated. In the latter years, researchers started to investigate about it and observed the presence of toxic compounds in the vapor generated by electronic cigarettes, compounds that are carcinogenic, such as formaldehyde and acetaldehyde. And exposure to these compounds, even if their concentration is sometimes lower than in conventional cigarette smoke, could lead to the worst scenario. The users of electronic cigarettes usually don't know the risks they're exposed to. And what's really concerning is that the youngs that never smoked conventional cigarettes are appealed to electronic cigarettes, mostly because of their aesthetics and also because of the variety of flavors that they offer. My thesis aim is to investigate the putative toxicological effects of the exposure to the vapor generated by electronic cigarettes. In this way, people could be aware of the risks they're exposed to and choose consciously how to stop smoking conventional cigarettes. Moreover, the government agencies could tutelate health through appropriate laws. Thank you.
And now, our last contestant, Giuseppe Lamberti. Giuseppe is an oncologist and a PhD student in medical oncology. He did not consider a career in the academia until he went to Boston on a research fellowship at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. Thanks to his supervisor, he changed his mind and decided that he needed to give back with research and mentoring. Giuseppe has always loved science, but he also has another long-standing passion in his life, Lego. He collects and builds Lego, so he's an AFOL, short for Adult Fans of Lego. His favorite Lego set, the 1978 Yellow Castle, whose color was meant to discourage children from building tanks during the Cold War years. Giuseppe, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, thank you for the presentation. Cancer is one of the greatest challenges of modern medicine. The recently updated hallmarks of cancer have included the avoidance of immune system surveillance. Indeed, immune system has been protecting us from any kind of infection from viruses, bacteria, and parasites for million years. The fact is that the immune system also defends us against cancer, any kind of cancer. That is why people with dysfunction in the immune system develop cancer more frequently and more easily. Immune therapy is a new kind of anti-cancer strategy that boosts immune system to fight against cancer and provided impressive results in many hard-to-treat tumors. Lung cancer is the deadliest tumor worldwide. And small cell lung cancer is one of the most aggressive cancer. For over 40 years, chemotherapy has been the only available treatment once a small cell lung cancer spread outside of the thorax. Chemotherapy is very effective in shrinking deeply and rapidly tumors, but as fast as the tumor shrinks, as fast it gets back. This held true until a couple of years ago when immunotherapy showed to prolong the remission and survival time, but this was limited to a small subset of patients. So we asked, how could we make immunotherapy work for more patients? There are factors within the tumor that inhibit and block immune system from working. There is a protein called VEGF, short for vascular endothelial growth factor, that is produced in great amounts in small cell lung cancer cells. As the name says, the main activity of VEGF is to build new blood vessels that feed the tumor. However, it has been shown also to prevent immune cells to get into the tumor to fight it. It comes out that there are many drugs able to block VEGF activity. However, these have never been studied with immune therapy in small cell lung cancer yet. The idea is that blocking VEGF can allow immune cells boosted by immune therapy to get into the tumor and fight it. So we decided a phase 2 clinical trial of chemotherapy, immunotherapy, and anti-VEGF therapy to investigate its efficacy in prolonging survival in small cell lung cancer patients. The trial is currently ongoing. 15 patients have been enrolled throughout Italy, and the full results will be available when 52 patients will be enrolled and followed up for at least 1 year. Hopefully, by the end of my PhD, in late 2022. Thank you.
Thank you to Giuseppe, our last participant. As anticipated earlier, we are welcoming Mrs. Nudi to the stage again. She will play for us Friedrich Kuhlhaus, I think it's not the right pronunciation, sorry, Capriccio number 3 for flute. Mrs. Nudi, the floor is yours. Thank you. Valentina, thank you for this wonderful interpretation. And thanks to the Collegium Musicum Alme Matris that is really committed to its students and to the universal value of music. We have come to the end of UNIBO's 3MT competition, and we are now ready to announce the winners of the 2021 edition. The jury and the voting audience have evaluated our PhD students' performances, but before announcing the winner, let me first congratulate every participant, as you did a great job. It takes a lot of courage to do what you have done today. The winner of this 3MT competition will get to go to the finals of the 3MT hosted by the Coimbra Group and compete against other European PhD candidates from University of the Coimbra Group and the chance of winning a money prize. My colleagues are still looking at the votes, so they may need a couple of minutes. And then we will declare the winner and second position and third position. We are now, as you heard at the beginning of our event, we are in the Sala Ottavo Centenario. We are at the Rectorate in this beautiful place. Last year it was full of people. Unfortunately, this is only a hybrid event, but we want to think positively, and we hope to have again this competition in presence next year. So, here we are. The winner is... no, let's start from third position. Third position is Caterina Morganti. Caterina, can you come here? Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations. You did it near me, please. Then I leave the floor to you all. Then we have second position is Vittoria Laghi. Vittoria, congratulations. And now, the winner of this 2021 edition is... unfortunately, we don't have drums, but imagine drums right now. Luca Bondi. Luca, are you still with us? Can we ask Luca to switch his camera on? Is he online? So congratulations, yeah. Luca. Very great job. So we know.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay. Perfect. Sorry.
Can you tell us a word as a winner? How was your experience?
At the beginning, I was like a little down because I tried to explain it to my dad and my mom that are like, like normal workers. And so they asked me a lot of questions. And that was a very great input. And so I want to really thank them and my friends that really helped me on try to figure out the best way to say this to someone that has never seen science in their life other than high school, let's say.
Congratulations again. Here we have your prize. When you will be back here in Bologna, we will be very happy to welcome you here at the Rectorate and to give you a little gift for thanking for your availability and your job, the job you did. Okay, so thank again, and I hope you can join us for the next edition as maybe as voting audience. You did really a great job. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.